How's it going, guys? Chris here. We are back with the Season 3, Week 3 Power Rankings. If you don't know what the Power Rankings are, it is me sitting here making up an imaginary, fantastical list of how I think the teams of the GBA are doing as far as likelihood to win the whole thing. It's based off a lot of things that are not just simple reading the stat sheet, reading the records. If you'd like someone to just give you a breakdown of what's going on in the conferences and where people stand that way, every Saturday we should have a weekly recap video, and at the end of it, it has a conference breakdown where they just tell you where the teams are ranked. This is for fun speculation, opinion-based stuff, so please join me in this magical, opinionated journey we're about to go on. Number 16 is the Cleveland Cavaliers and Nexus. Nexus just kind of has a comfortable home at the bottom with a massively negative differential. The first man to break into the double-digit negative differential. That being said, the Johto Conference is the weaker of the two, most likely, and the one with the most room for people to come up and get a nice little wild card sneak into the playoffs. But, I mean, Nexus just doesn't seem to have the grasp on the format as far as, predicting what the other person's going to bring and knowing what he should be bringing at this point. Number 15 is going to be the new takeover team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Sork starts out pretty low because he's starting out in the hole. He started out in the hole with 2 losses. He added on to that with his first match being a loss to a not-so-super threatening team. Granted, with a team he didn't draft and didn't understand. That being said, Sork made all of the trades in the world, leaving only 2 original members of his team, one of which he's very likely to drop into free agency, I'm sure. So the thing is, Sork has a totally untested team with a deficit, and he is not familiar with the format. That's kind of a recipe for disaster. Add that into the fact that he is taking over a first-seeded team, means he has proportionally harder schedule than what most of the other expansion teams would have. So while he does have the power and versatility options of a team that is not an expansion team, he is a totally new coach thrown in, head underwater. And I just don't think things look very good for his outcome. Again, kind of the same disclaimer with Nexus. He is in the Johto Conference, so they do have a lot better chance to pop up and do something big. But it has to be something not just big, but honestly huge, massive, and frankly jaw-droppingly shocking. Number 14 goes to the Denver Bronzongs, Roger Rabbit. Another tough loss this week, another significantly large loss. Roger sitting at a massively negative differential as of week 3, up there with the likes of Nexus and Sork. Not quite as bad, but pretty close. Factor that in with the fact that Roger is in Kanto, which is historically a tougher conference, and if you look at the teams this season, seems to be holding the trend that it is a tougher conference. So I don't think things look very good for Roger. He's going to need to pick up a lot of wins starting now, and also hope that the other teams in his conference cannibalize each other and keep things middling, similar to the same way things went leading up into the playoffs for Kanto last season, where we saw a lot of teams were still in the running just because they kept playing each other and all had kind of middling records. All right, the next chunk of the list, a lot of these things are going to look pretty much the same. Kind of like the back half of the list, but I didn't really notice it there. So number 13 is going to go to the St. Louis Rampardos. Dan, narrow loss this week. Wasn't bad play, wasn't bad planning. Just a narrow loss against a tough play. So he's not really going to move anywhere. He is yet to take out any of the outstandingly large teams, but he only has 1 loss to his belt, so he's sitting pretty alright at the moment. Big tell is going to be how his match up against Steve goes in the future, where that's going to land him, but every win helps, everyone's going to move him up, and that's pretty straightforward. Number 12 is the now with 1 win Milwaukee Bucks, picking on the new guy, taking their win when they can, and not really caring about it because, a W is a W at the end of the day. That's good enough for scorekeepers, and that's probably good enough for the Bucks here. But this is, momentum. Momentum is a real legitimate thing. They just need to go off this. Hope they can keep going forward with it. Hope they can keep getting some wins and move on and move up. The win wasn't the most dramatic or telling win of the season, but they did get a good win. If he manages to pull off another one against Dan, that'll be nice momentum heading on into the future. But he is going to need to start pulling off some big wins against some interconference players in the future to really show that he needs to be there. He deserves to be higher up on this list. Number 11, and kind of steady dropping at this point, is the New York Yankees. Listen, there's no shame in their loss this past week against Gubbs. Gubbs is an amazing top-level player. He's going to be that way for most of the season. There's no reason to think he's not going to be. And, losing to him is not bad, especially on a short-term notice before you get your wisdom teeth taken out. That is absolutely fair game and should be factored in and considered by everyone when it comes time to do such things. That being said, Shady's just struggling. He's always been struggling, but he manages to stay in there and, sneak in just barely good enough to get into the playoffs, which I think is very much still a chance. He's just not going to be the guy leading the pack this season. It will be interesting to see how he goes once we start getting into the interconference games, and maybe he can pull off some good wins there and knock out the competition, because really those are going to be the matches that decide things. If you beat people in your division, that's a direct bump up as far as your chances to make the playoffs, as opposed to the out-of-conference things, or out-of-division games, where you are going up, but the people you're competing against in your division can also go up because they aren't losing to you. So that being said, Shady's still in it, but at number 11, things are starting to look grim early in the season. We'll have to see if he can play more like week 1 Shady and get some cool surprise wins going on, or if this is going to be a struggle and grind throughout the season. Number 10 with the bump up is going to go to Danza, Crobat for the win, coach of the LA Nido Kings. Good win against Nick this week. Solid win. That's your major takeaway from it. When you beat Nick, you're doing pretty well for yourself. You're doing something right if you manage to beat him. Even on Nick's worst day, when you beat him, you're doing all right. And that's exactly what Danza did. Danza beat him. Danza got a win. Danza's got a pretty positive record. Honestly, the only reason Danza's so low on this list is because he is in a tooth and nail grinding conference of doom over there in the Kanto conference. Make things worse because you're throwing him in the blue division with Cote and Gubbs, and things don't look good there. It's going to be almost mathematically impossible for anyone to pass Gubbs as far as win-loss and differential goes. That's just a historical thing that Gubbs plays well. He gets wins, and he gets significant volume wins. He's one of those people that the scoreboard lie helps a lot. What I mean by that is, it'll say Gubbs got like a 4-0, and that's not, an incredibly huge 4-0. It's a lot of things that were on low HP, but he managed to preserve them and keep them alive. And that just makes it a very hard number to compete with, especially, for Danza that typically pulls off lower number wins. He's really going to have to go hard getting W's, and he's really going to have to make the push in the interdivisional games to, have any kind of opportunity to knock Gubbs out. And you have to factor in that the one wildcard spot goes across both divisions for one conference. So not only is he competing with Cote for that, but he's also going to be competing with whoever is the number 2 spot in the red division. So, like I said, things don't look great for him, but he's playing great and he's doing well at this point. All right, number 9 is Meganmogwai with the Real Morel, back in the single digits. There you go, buddy. You're doing things. Everybody clap. I actually wanted to just make the video repeating loop of Miguel clapping, because that's another thing he does in his videos, but he didn't clap this week early on in the video, so I was like, well, that's going to be work to actually find video of him clapping and do that. So, fortunately, he just gets a normal video this week. All right, here's why Miguel is at number 9. He got another win. and he's doing pretty good with his wins. He's got, arguably one of the toughest conferences and one of the toughest divisions to go. So, for an expansion team, he's not going to be shooting up. He made some trades that I think are a little bit questionable, but at the end of the day, they are going to suit his play style. So it's going to be interesting to see if his play style is going to function as well in the GBA as, just having the immediate raw power benefit of some of the other things that he had, like Infernape. Factor that in with the fact that I think Miguel has a win style very similar to what I was talking about with Gubbs. Not a play style, because they do play somewhat differently, but typically Miguel, is very cautious about what he sacks and trying to preserve things for numbers, which it's unintentional numbers' sake, but in this format it actually works for numbers' sake. And various things like that. Like, if you look at the scores and the records, Miguel's either going to win with a 3 or higher, or he's going to lose by a significant margin. That's the one thing that's going to make them, differ here between him and Gubbs. But that being said, if Miguel can keep getting wins, he's going to be up there in differential. The problem's just going to be mitigating the losses a little bit better, which is why he's a little bit further back in the seat than a couple of other people in his division. But that being said, still very much has a chance, very much in the range of wild card and potentially even the, just number one guaranteed spot if he keeps winning, because it is so early in the season. Coming in at number 8 is actually going to be the Anaheim Mighty Ducklets, Adam of TNA TV. Adam's sitting really good right now. He's sitting in arguably the best spot of any expansion team at a 2-1 record. In a division that now is a little bit more open for victory with the, Steelix leaving and the Timberwolves stepping in. He's got a very good chance at actually making the playoffs off of this, depending on how things go, depending on his interconference and interdivisional matches go. That being said, one thing that's probably going to hold Adam back a little bit and is going to make things a little bit risky for him is the fact that Adam is not a big winner. You will very rarely, if ever, see Adam putting up 4-0s, 5-0s, 6-0s, etc. Adam plays very cautiously, very, defensively, and has no problem sacking things to give him further momentum in the future, which isn't normally how you think of defenses and cautiously. Normally you can kind of consider that offensive, just like sacking things to move things. But, Adam makes a lot of switches, takes a lot of chip damage over time, but he does it calculatingly to wear the other person down. Whereas other people who, play a longer game with chip damage and wear down tend to have better means of recovery, preservation, things like that. Adam doesn't really have that. Like we saw this week, put up a narrow 1-0 win. I think the highest record he has of this entire season is maybe a 2-0. A 2-0 win so far, and I think he's very likely to stay in that range. In the D League, I think we saw like 1-4-0 his entire season there, and that was a pretty big thing for him going on. So that being said, if Adam starts putting up huge numbers, you could easily see him skyrocket to the top of his division and potentially, the conference overall. As it stands right now, just based off of wins, he has the wild card spot, in for the conference overall, but it's still very much within a graspable range for some other people, and he's going to need to start putting up some differential numbers to pad that in the event that he picks up a couple of more losses during the season. Number 7 is the heartbreaking drop of the San Jose Sharpedos, once a forerunner of the league, arguably top of their division, up there with the Pelipers. The Sharpedos are having a rough start to the season, and this week was just yet another bad start. It's a very simple reason. This is what happens when your team has one thing, then you don't prepare for it. It's unfortunately a very similar tale to how he managed to get such a huge win over the Cleveland Cavaliers the week before, them not having a check for Mega Venusaur. Tom himself, unfortunately, not really having checks, switch-ins, and options for the threat that is offensive Life Orb Head Smash Aggron. So, even though they don't play again, in the regular season, if they make it to the playoffs and Tom has to play Cooper again, I don't think that's a mistake you'll see him make again. I think Tom is definitely going to learn from this one. He's going to pick up some, new strategies, new insights, and maybe, look at his team a little bit more and things he should have brought and adjust that accordingly. Tom's definitely not out of this by a long shot. I think he's probably the number one contender for the wild card spot in the Johto conference as far as things go. But right now, just because that was a very big loss, and he did have the loss week 1 as well, he is falling a little bit behind. But, for a guy with, at week 3, a losing record, I still put him up this highly because I still think he very much has a chance. He's got a lot more matches to go. He's got a lot of really good matchups coming on in the week or in the coming weeks, and you'll see him go back up there. You'll see him be a front runner, and you'll see him be a threat in that division and conference. Speaking of Life Orb offensive head smash aggron, number 6 is going to go to Cooper Kishiro of the Utah Jasmine, who is, at this point, honestly, the front runner for the silver division of the Johto Conference. With the loss of Joe after an unimpressive performance, honestly, Cooper stepped up and is showing what we knew from the end of last season, that Cooper's coming to play. He's bringing the right things this season. He's getting some wins. Took Cote down to a 1-0 loss in the first week was huge, and it said a lot about Cooper's ability to play. Coming in off week 2, just gets a good win. And week 3, a really huge win over a very impressive and threatening team. This is what happens when Cooper brings some offense, and it's the right offense. He has the incredibly thick walls to sit there and deal with things that a lot of other people don't have. And even if you have a ton of power like the Sharpedos have, it's still an incredibly difficult defensive core to break through. This is kind of the week that justifies the thing Cooper was saying earlier last season and this season, that his priority was on drafting high-value defense, and the offense could just be plug and play. And I think maybe he finally got the right plug-and-play offensive pieces, at least for this season, at least for this matchup. And, we could see him go all the way to the playoffs this season, and it's looking more and more likely as it goes on. Number 5 goes to the New Orleans Pelipperge Pokemon, a.k.a. John. Well, John, you 5-0'd Nexus. We're all very impressed. That's all. You can go ahead. We're going to go on to the next number now. I don't have anything to say, John. Number 4 goes to Cote, the Toronto Maple Leafeons. A surprising loss this week for a lot of people. 3-0 loss. Some bad rolls, some bad plays, things like that. But don't discount that as the Leafeons being out of the race just yet. Have a big match this week up against the forerunner of their season in the Arizona Deoxys, and that match is going to tell you a lot about the Maple Leafeons' chances going into things further, but still isn't going to set things up, as they will play them twice, and they do have a lot more interdivisional matches to go, since this is the first week the interdivisional matches will start. So, that being said, Cote is far from out of this. A big thing going in his favor is the fact that the one wildcard slot actually goes across both things. And he can pick up a lot of wins and hurt in the other conference outside of his division, and really penalize them a lot while they further cannibalize himself. And that can really help him and push him back up there. And I think that's a thing we very well might see happen. I would still put fairly even money on Cote making it to the playoffs in the wild card spot this season. If not, legitimately going in there on his own. Number 3, in what's actually a pretty big drop, is going to be Nick in the Super Blah and the Boston Red Sox. I said it before, the Red Sox would be number 1 until somebody beat them, and somebody beat them. Somebody who honestly was kind of an outside shot took them down good enough in such a way that it goes to show this team is not as unbeatable as it once was. And Nick's still going to have to work to secure his spot in the playoffs and defend his championship title. Haven't really seen him get the most out of his draft picks this season. It seems to be a lot of the existing team putting in work for him. And, maybe for all of his work, all of his spreadsheets, the draft did not go as well for Nick as he thought it did. They're still going to have to wait and see how all of that shakes out in the long run. That being said, Nick's obviously still a very threatening figure in his league, in his conference, and in his division. And you're probably going to see him up there in the playoff race, if not making it. This week is going to be him against the Atlanta Halogens, and that's going to tell you a lot about the things that are going to shake down in the Kanto Conference, I think. Number 2 is your Atlanta Halogens. Fizzy Stardust in the front office really putting in work, pulling off a huge win against Cote this week. Like I said, pair that with the fact that Nick lost, and the Halogens are one of only 2 undefeated teams in the entire league, not just their conference. Conveniently, both undefeated teams happen to be in that conference in opposite divisions. So right now, playoff chances are looking pretty apparent. The Halogens are sitting nice on their Kanto throne at a good 3-0. Not the highest differential, but still a very good differential and very threatening. Things made all the good trades they could. I think their team has gotten stronger every single week, and it's going to be a big thing to see someone take them down. Not to say it can't be done, not to say it won't be done, but as of right now, it's fairly obvious. They're sitting pretty, they're sitting good. They are the Red Division guys to beat, and heck, they may even be the Kanto guys to beat in a few weeks if things keep going their way. Finally, at number 1 is the team I normally start the season out at number 1. It's the Arizona Deoxys. Gubbs showing that even without the almighty powerful Heatran, his team is still a threat, still a force to be reckoned with, and that his play style absolutely works for this format. Putting up the big 3-0 wins, putting up solid numbers on the board, as I talked about earlier. Deceptive scoreboard because a lot of his matches are closer than they appear. However, at the end of the day, the scoreboard is kind of the only thing that matters, and the differential tells its own story, and that's the story history goes by. Right now, the Deoxys differential story is one of massively threatening numbers. And, that's kind of all you need. Undefeated, huge differential, making the plays, taking down, good teams along the way. This week, going up against Cote is going to be a big thing for him. If he knocks him out, he will officially be back at the top threat of the conference, in my opinion, and it'll be the team everybody should be gunning to beat and knock down in order to make their chances better. That being said, it's going to be very hard. Like I said, even when Gubbs loses, he loses by very narrow margins, but when he wins, it's always a pretty decent win. So, playing your sweepers appropriately, folks, and see if you can break through that bulky core that he's got going on and, his safe play style. It'll be interesting to see if anybody can do it. It'll be interesting to see when some more people do it. But as of right now, it is all the Arizona Deoxys' thing to lose. And, so you guys should definitely hop on that bandwagon. If you're a bandwagon jumper, it's definitely a good week to go invest in some Arizona merchandise. It doesn't have any real merchandise, but you can make some little flyers, some of the little sticks on flags with poorly drawn Arizona Deoxys logos, and tweet them to @Gubbstacular. That'll be fun. That's a fun thing for you guys to do, right? Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me. Please come back on Saturday. Check out the weekly recaps. Honey and Gio have been killing it. If there's any more trades and news, I will be sure to try and get videos up for you. If you missed the news a couple of days ago about all of the trades that happened last week and which go into effect for week 4, that should be the video before this one on the channel page. It'll be right there for you. All of the week's matches that have been uploaded as of this date are in a playlist in the description. You can go check those out if you missed anything. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. Those are cool, and it's like, hey, you guys like me. And if you have stuff you want to say it in the comments. Comments are cool. We try and respond to a lot of the comments. We can't respond to you if you don't have a linked account. So all of those people that keep asking questions and don't have linked accounts, so we can't reply to you, you are the worst.